Today I want to talk a bit about platform engineering from the perspective of it being a product. And so normally I don't talk a lot about myself because you don't really care, you have to listen to me anyways, but I think it's worth saying that I care deeply about platform engineering. I've been a platform engineer for many years. I'm currently working as a principal engineer at a company trying to help. Our mission is literally to help platform engineers thrive. So I care deeply about the space and have been working in this space in the community and in products for a long time. And where that comes from is, or what that leads to, is that myself and the team I work with believes that platform engineering has a lot of potential as a team topology. What does that mean? Well, there was a book released a few years ago called Team Topologies by Matthew Skelton and Manuel Pais. And this just kind of codified and gave language around things that a lot of us already used a lot and already understood, which is that the shapes of teams look a little bit different throughout an organization, and how they interact can look a little bit different. So they kind of just codified patterns that we've seen throughout the years. The first set of patterns that they codified were around the shapes of teams. They called stream-aligned teams what a lot of us might call feature teams or product teams, but the teams that basically are making the business value that the business expects people to make. Where in an ideal world, 100% of engineers would be working on that thing because that's what customers pay for. But the reality is that you can't have 100% of people working on customer-facing features because there's a lot of underlying requirements that they have to depend on. And so there's a handful of other teams that can support. So internally, you may have enabling teams, which you may most commonly have sort of like agile coaches or test engineering or some specialists like DBAs that might enable a number of teams rather than being on one specific team. You also might have complicated subsystem teams, which these would be similar to enabling, but providing actual kind of usable features. So this might be a team that owns some libraries that other teams depend on to be able to deal with something like authentication, which is like a specialist kind of piece of code. And then you've got that platform team that I care so deeply about. And this is a team that provides the underlying services to support the software that the other teams are using. Outside of the teams being formalized, they also talked about the interaction modes. And you can see 3 interaction modes behind me. The first is collaboration. That's going to be all over here on your right at the bottom. That is a deeply person-to-person related interaction. So that is where you get 2 people with expertise or 2 teams with expertise, and they work hand in hand to understand the requirements of the team, of the tools to be created, and they work together. This doesn't scale particularly well, but so you can also leverage something like facilitation, which is also very human-to-human interaction focused, but does scale because you start to use things like documentation or trainings or communities of practice to try and allow for more of a one-to-many relationship in that kind of coaching and collaborating world. The third structure is a fundamental shift away from human-to-human interaction and into an API or an interface that doesn't require humans to exercise. And that is the X as a service interaction mode. Yes, you're gonna have to still speak to people. Sorry, I know not all platform engineers like that. But this is where you turn into a product team. And so when you're talking to people, it's about gathering requirements for the product, but the use of the product should be able to be done without your interaction, so without collaboration and without facilitation. And so it enables a lot more scaling. So that's the quick primer on what I mean by platform teams as a topology. Platform teams often operate in all 3 of these modes at different kind of points in their time, and we'll talk a bit more about that. But back to what I was saying. I care deeply about platform engineering, and I think it has a lot of potential, but I don't think that we always take advantage of that potential. This is coming from someone who has been on the teams that didn't and wish we could have done better when I was there. And the reason why is, I think, twofold. So the first reason is I think that creating those APIs for that X as a service pattern is really difficult. And that's what my team is currently working on with the open source framework called Kratix. But that's only one of the reasons that's difficult. I'll be around for today and tomorrow. Come talk to me if you're trying to make APIs, because we can talk Cradix. It's not why I'm here for the next 20 minutes. The next 20 minutes, I want to talk about the other reason I think it's really hard, which is that a lot of times teams don't invest in their platform as a product. And so that's what we're going to dig into. And we're going to do that by setting the stage with a story. And this is true as in Hollywood movie true, as in it's based on real events. I've worked with a lot of different companies as a consultant as well as being an in-house platform engineer. And this is sort of a grouping of a few stories to make it more exciting for a conference talk. So the story is that I'm here on this platform team. We're the heroes and heroines of the story here in the middle of the org, making everything work. And there are other teams around. We talked about a stream-aligned team. These are the people working on the business value, customer end user-facing tools. And there's also business teams, so finance and marketing, customer success, et cetera. We're like any other organization. We have a whole bunch of SaaS products we depend on. We use Jira to track all our work, and we're in that ecosystem, so we use Confluence for our wiki. And we've got Slack to chat. And one of the big things that we do is we have independent AWS accounts for each of our kind of teams and products. And the reason this is a bit historic, is that when we were a small company, we wanted to allow people autonomy and to move fast. But we also wanted to make sure that we didn't risk permissions issues and stomping on each other. And the fastest and easiest way to get people going was accounts. So as we've been growing, it's become quite commonplace to have people come and ask us for an account. Teams split, grow too big and they split, they need a new account, we spin up a new team, we make a new project, all the time, it happens. And we have a process for that, and it's fine. And it's fine, really. It exists. It's better than a lot of the other fires at our organization, so we use it. A request comes into Jira, just like any other piece of work at our organization. Our team picks it up, we go to our wiki, we look at the runbook on how to make sure we connect the new account to the billing account, and we return back the information that the team needs. It works. Until one day it didn't. All of a sudden we had finance coming to us and saying, why am I getting expense reports for AWS accounts? This is not in our process, we're not able to deal with these expenses, and it's a lot of money, and people are getting upset with us that they can't get paid back for these credit card charges for their accounts. Fix it. And we said, ooh, yeah, that's fair. That's not good. We should fix that. And so we wanted to investigate what was going on. And like any good engineering team, we're data focused. So we jumped to Jira. One of the best parts of using a tool like Jira or any other ticketing system is you can see when things get opened, you can see how long they take, how much back and forth there is, all sorts of data to be had. Well, when we looked at this data, it's a bit embarrassing. We knew that wasn't a great process. We knew we didn't love it, but it was taking us almost 2 weeks to get back to people in many times. It was like the team didn't love the process. There was sort of a day or two of lag waiting for someone to pick up the ticket because nobody wanted to do it. And then there was another couple days of confirming the information with the requester because it wasn't quite clear from the Jira ticket. And then a couple more if there was errors in the hand-done kind of run book. And so little by little, that added up to over a week in the majority of cases. And as engineers ourselves, we just knew that wasn't viable. We would never wait over a week for a dependency. We would also go off and do the thing we need to do to provide value on our teams. So we thought, we'll fix that. And so we looked at our process and we realized that the thing that was causing all the issue was this manual runbook. It's not just that it was manual, it was that it was tiring for us to do it because people weren't confident with it and it was a pain in the butt and it took a lot of time and so people avoided it. And all that combination created that backlog. So we decided to automate it. And we successfully did that, right? We're a team of engineers and we got a ton of value from it. First of all, finance all of a sudden was great, you're really responsive, you didn't just tell us to go away. You not only listened to us, you fixed it quickly. Really appreciate that. And so that built that relationship. We also were able to revisit the expectations with those stream-aligned teams. Our organization's been growing, we took advantage of an all-hands to talk about this new process and how quick it was gonna be and how to go about it for all the new hires. And now everybody's up to date on what the process is and is ready to go. And finally, you can imagine toil we're pretty happy with ourselves, because now when a ticket comes into Jira, we click one button, run one script, and we're back out the door. And so it's reduced our time to market a lot as an individual team. And that was great. Except in my best SpongeBob voice, 3 months later, we had finance knocking on our door again, and they were frustrated. They were like, why are people still coming at us with these expense reports? We cannot manage these, and you told us you had fixed it. Uh-oh. And the problem is that we had fixed a problem. We did not fix the problem. And so we took an opportunity to go back and look at things from a product point of view. So instead of from a technical implementation point of view, how can we speed things up? We needed to look at this from a customer point of view. What is it that the customers who are trying to create accounts need, and how can we deliver that as a product team? So first of all, you have to be able to identify the problem. And just to be clear, being a little bit nice to past Abby and past Abby's teammates, we did identify a problem. 2 weeks of lag time on a request was not okay, and we improved that, right? So, often we're doing pieces of this, but we needed to sit in that problem space a little bit longer. We needed to really dive into what is the problem from our customer's point of view. And so to do that, we leveraged the jobs to be done theory. Now, this has been around for 20 or 30 years at this point, but I have to admit it was pretty new to me recently, and so it may be new to you. What the jobs to be done theory says is no matter how great your data is about people, if you don't understand what motivates them and what they need to complete by using your product, you're going to be insufficient in solving problems. Where this comes from is all the data collection in like the 80s and 90s about people. Where do they live? What is their education level? How old are they? Do they have kids or not? And companies were still failing to be really successful on rolling out changes to their organization and to their products. And they were confused. And what this theory says is it doesn't matter if someone is college educated or high school educated, if someone grew up in the UK or the US. It matters what they're trying to achieve. What job are they trying to complete? And so what we have to think about is what job is someone trying to complete that is using your product or your tool to do so. So there is a job that makes somebody want to get an AWS account at our organization. Why? Because maybe that's the reason why this whole process through Jira wasn't working for them. And so the first thing we need to do is learn about that job to be done. So we started doing a little bit more about jobs to be done. There are 4 characteristics to the jobs, and so that you can try and identify them in your own organizations. The first is that they're solution agnostic. The job needs to be completed, and there's often lots of ways to complete that job. You're hungry, you can eat lots of different things, right? It's solution agnostic, but you do have to solve that hunger problem. The job needs to be completed. You have to make progress on the thing that you want to achieve. The solutions are where you get to innovate. So I need to get from point A to point B has existed forever, but we've moved on from the Oregon Trail to rockets, right? This has changed how we move due to innovation in the space and products. And finally, it's not just the functional need to move from point A to point B, it's also the social and emotional aspects to it. So the job might be able to be solved with a convertible, but if you're trying to carry a few kids around, that may not be the best solution, right? And so there's going to be aspects of that job that are maybe less obvious to someone who's not in there, doesn't have those emotional and social challenges. So it's why you have to talk to people and know what's going on. While you're trying to think about jobs, you might think of these in your everyday life. So jobs can be things that are really regular. I'm an American, tax season is really regular. It's a pain in the butt, right? So there's schedules. There's also things that are unexpected. You break a bone, all of a sudden you have to get that fixed. You have to manage the pain. These are unexpected jobs. There's small jobs like making yourself dinner, and bigger jobs like moving house, right? So there's lots of jobs that you are hiring products for all of the time. So when that comes to internal platforms, we need to learn about what jobs our customers, these application developers, need to achieve and need to do. And we do that to understand how they want to operate their software, build and operate. That's what this platform is meant to support them on. And so we want to ask the question of why do you need an AWS account? And we do that through a survey or an interview. This can be extremely lightweight. This doesn't have to be formal. You don't have to spend months trying to think up the questions. You have a conversation with your colleagues about what it is that they need an account for and how they think about it. It can take 15 minutes, it can take an hour, whatever it is that you can do. The biggest thing is that you're building a relationship that you show that you care about what they're trying to do, and you actually care about what they're trying to do because they are your customers, right? And so here it is, you just want to hear from them. You don't want to tell them they're right or wrong. You don't want to problem solve with them. You just want to hear from them. And we did that. And we learned that actually people have lots of jobs they want to complete. It's not just one. Sometimes it's teams splitting apart. Sometimes it's products trying to get to production quickly. Sometimes it's a new team trying to switch, just duplicate their efforts across regions, right? So maybe these are different jobs that we were trying to solve with all the same tool, and that isn't actually reasonable. And we also learned a lot about their experiences. Now, first of all, being nice to Past Abby and Past Abby's team, we were right. They were really annoyed that they had to wait so long to get an account when they hired our platform, the Jira tickets. And they were really pleased to be able to use the AWS directly because they got it instantly, right? But we learned so much more. We also learned that AWS accounts was really a means to an end, and they didn't really know why they needed an account when all they actually needed was to store some documents in S3. Or all they actually needed was access to a server, and that was all they wanted. So people weren't needing the accounts. They weren't understanding the accounts. They just needed the services in them. We also learned that one of the reasons why people avoided our product when they were trying to get their job done is because it was scary to them. They open up Jira and there's all these fields and they don't know which ones are required. So they kind of go try and find a past ticket, copy and paste that. Don't know if that was done correctly at the time, who knows. Or they reach out to a friend on the platform team or on some other team to try and learn what's going on. So basically the interface was uncertain for them. And so we needed to focus on the fact that the jobs that they needed to get done were that they needed services, not accounts, and that they weren't pros at using the cloud. They wanted to have this be much more approachable and much more usable for their use cases. So it's time for us to start solving that problem for them so that they will choose our product to get their jobs done. That's what we're trying to achieve as a platform team. When trying to get started in this next phase where we're solutionizing, we still want to kind of think big rather than immediately going to one solution. Just like we shouldn't have gone to one solution right at the beginning, which was to speed up the build or the return on that ticket. And so it's really important during this phase that no idea is silly, no idea is impossible, no idea is too expensive. I mean, there is, but you don't want to clarify that at this stage. You want those ideas to come out. The reason is there might be a nugget in some of those crazy, off-the-wall, silly ideas that can be turned into something that is manageable and extremely kind of interesting and different than you would have thought of if you had tried to put boundaries around, well, you can only do things that are within a day's worth of effort or something like that. So when we're doing ideation at this point, we want all of those ideas without judgment. The only rule we set is that you have to stay focused on the thing that we're trying to achieve. So keep in mind those jobs that they have told us they need to do, which came out of our interviews. And make sure that you are focused on that problem when you are ideating. In my experience, ideation is best done with active facilitation. So if you think back to the movies of press rooms where people put their feet up on the table, it's a smoky room and people are shouting out ideas and coming up with great new articles and all these things. It's sort of a caricature of an ideation session. Except when you look at the way that we manage this in our organizations, we haven't actually moved on that much. How much of it is just shouting ideas at each other, riffing off each other verbally and in place? And that works really well in some teams, so I don't want to tell you how to work as a team, but not everyone works best that way. And so you have to know your team. And one of the ways that we try and encourage more diverse ideas is that we use a way of brain writing. And what brain writing is it's a 3x3 grid, so 9 squares, that we do in 3 different sections. And everybody gets a paper, and they get given 5 minutes maybe to come up with 3 ideas. And that's the first row of the paper. In that 5 minutes, they add their 3 ideas for how they could possibly solve this on like a Post-it note. These are not, long written documents, right? From there, they pass that paper around the room to someone else. Now, if you're super creative and you have 6 ideas right off the top of your head, go ahead and add your next 3 ideas onto that sheet that has one of your colleagues' ideas already on it. But if you're starting to run low on your own kind of unique ideas, you've now got some things to look at and to try and build off of, where you can iterate on them or pivot from them, right? So you do that again and again. So you wind up with 3 turns through and 9 ideas on every paper, and that results in however many humans you have in the room times 9 ideas. And this is what allows us to kind of get some interesting ideas out there. From there, we obviously have to make decisions, so we distill those into a clear set of ideas. In this case, we had 8, and we need to start to prioritize them. And my team loves a good 2x2. And so that's a great way to look at cost versus value. With that, we are able to put on the 2 axes of a 2x2 the cost, as in how long it will take for us to manage something, to implement it, and the value. And this is about alignment to our vision as a platform. So this isn't just the value to the end user, but we have a vision of providing a product. And what does this do for it? We add our stickies to it, and we have to select one. And the thing is, it's not scientific. You can't just say, oh, the highest value, low cost thing and take it. Because there's reasons why you might want to pick something else as an iterative approach. And that's exactly what we did. We decided to simplify Jira. We had lots of big visions and ideas for where the platform would go, but finance was on a time budget, and we had to get them a solution ASAP. So it was time for us to just commit to making Jira a bit easier for people. Except Jira can be really hard to automate, just if you haven't done it before, trying to add fields and make them required and all that. And so we ran into the same problem as we would run into with any code, which is that we want fast feedback, but it's not always easy to get. Because there are some truths about code. First of all, it's expensive. Actually implementing things, writing it, maintaining it, testing it is hard. But you have to give people something tangible to look at to get realistic feedback. If you tell them an idea, they either are sort of tuned out or they don't really know how to respond to you. And while this is a very technical issue within the platform, it is also a user interaction. So you can use the same techniques that you use with anything else. Prototyping. Way easier than automating Jira, just saying. So we created a prototype and we showed it to some people. And we said, what do you think? And it turns out, didn't solve any problems. They were like, sure, fine, okay, you've got a couple less fields, but I know what Jira really looks like. And there's those 20 other fields that are on every ticket, and do I need to worry about those? And there was still stress. There was also stress because we asked them to identify an account type, but we didn't really give them what that means. So they didn't really know, how do I choose between these? What are the implications? And so they were, in our bid to simplify, we actually created more stress. So we went back to the drawing board and we decided to invest in something that was higher cost, but more in line with the vision of the platform. And so we decided to introduce a chatbot. And we prototyped again. And that might not seem natural for people who are used to going straight to implementation, but we get this fast feedback and we see that people are really excited about it. They got information about when they might get this back. They get information about when they make a mistake in the form right there live. Even if we as our implementation just create a Jira card off the back of it. That's fine. They don't have to know that. They were able to provide us the right information confidently. And so we go and we get to deliver. And this is the bit where you can use Lean, you can use Agile, you can use XP. All I ask is that you keep looking for fast feedback as you deliver the code. But that's what we're good at, right? So I'm not going to dive in there. The last bit I want to touch on is that in the first version of this, the jobs to be done, we sort of did our job, wiped our hands, and moved on. But there were all sorts of accounts that had been created out of band. So what happened with them? Well, we sort of said, well, we've given you a process now, you can migrate. And we just left it with them. Except that's not how you win customers over and show them that you see what they're trying to do, and you're there to be a support system. That's not how they pick to want to use your product for the next job they want to do. Because to them, they have their account. Why would I bother with a migration? Maybe you should have had a better product to start with, platform team. So with this version, we actually took the time to figure out how to migrate people. And that built a level of trust that people then were more willing to come to us on the next time because they could see that we were genuinely thinking about their side of the problem and not just our own. So we used some tools. We looked at jobs to be done, brainwriting, and prototyping in order to really be customer focused with our platform, internal platform. And at the end of the day, it boils down to two very simple things. Talk to your customers and try and get faster feedback loops. And that can include prototyping, which is the bit that I think is new to a lot of platform teams. So if you want to learn more, there's a lot in the industry about why platforms should be products. And you can check out those links there. But otherwise, I think I'm on time. That was pretty good. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Abby. It's like the really spot-on starting time and ending time I've ever seen. But anyway, yeah, thanks for sharing, Abby. Any questions for Abby? Yes?
Thank you, great talk. Have you hired any product managers or considering product managers coming into the platform space? And what kind of backgrounds would you look for?
Fantastic question. So yes, I'm seeing that growing in the industry at large. The tool we're building right now, we just hired our product manager, which is exciting, and she's bringing all sorts of amazing ideas. And I've spoken with a lot of product managers who have started recently in platform teams around London particularly, because that's where I live, but I'm seeing it elsewhere as well. The big thing that I think people challenge with is that platforms are viewed as mandatory, even if they shouldn't be, because products don't get feedback if they're mandatory. People just, grumble behind the scenes. And they're also very low volume. So that kind of captive audience, low volume situation is quite unique for product. You can't use A/B testing. You can't use that kind of open up a blog post about how to do product kind of solutions. So I think that finding people who have been in those kinds of scenarios previously is going to be a really key part of finding success with people as they transition from other products to internal platforms.
Going once? Going twice? All right, well, if you want to connect with Abby, is the handle, and the talks are being recorded as well. Let's give a big round of applause. Thanks, Abby.